I wish it was, just broadcasted across every media outlet there is that diets don't work.
I want to talk today about dietitians in these eating clinics for people with E followed by the letter D, toxic ritualistic, all the code words we have to use because we're not allowed to talk about this subject unless we're accredited, like these people unfortunately are. The dietitians also promote fat acceptance in these spaces, in the eating recovery world. Promote it to people with hinge, with B followed by E followed by D. I like to call it bed. I want people to think it's just the therapists. It's the whole system. The whole system is rotten. It's like, and the second point I want to make throughout this, which is why I had to remake. I had recorded it before Christmas, some a little after Christmas, and then I've just scrapped it all, partly for technical reasons, honestly, but also because I wanted to really emphasize the fact that it's not. And it starts from the way they are taught. Systemic problem. I want to make really clear that this is not personal against any of the specific professionals involved, even though I may get annoyed with the things they are saying. Please don't go and obviously leave comments under the LinkedIn or anything of any of these people. It's not the point. This is the dietitian we're talking about. I'm just showing you this again, not to target her, just to give you the context of this is her role in the organization. She's got her biography here. She was trained in she got her degree in nutrition. That's interesting because at least in my country, a nutritionist and a dietitian are different things. And to call yourself a dietitian, you have to have a dietetics degree. But that might just be a semantics issue. I'm not sure if I'm not sure the significance of that in the United States. Please fill me in. So I'm not entirely, but it does say that she's a registered dietitian on the organization's website that I'm going to show you. So I think those might be interchangeable, or she's using them interchangeably.
It sounds like there's a lot of consequences of intermittent fasting, and they're maybe not that different than other diets. So, especially the fact that they create this like rigidity around lifestyle. So, can you speak a little bit more to that and maybe diets more in general?
This is 12 minutes in, and that's how long it took. It was that they couldn't stay on topic for that long, even though the subject of intermittent fasting has so many different studies that they could go into in any amount of depth they wanted to. They just get so bored of anything that isn't just going on an anti-diet tirade. That is their pet project. That is what they really care about. That is what the real reason they even covered this subject was, just as another way of telling people not to even try and lose weight. They're immediately going on to now diets in general after just 12 minutes of trying very limply, very pathetically in my opinion, trying to cover the subject of intermittent fasting. No, we're not really interested. Let's get on to why diets are all bad now.
Yeah, like you mentioned, diets like intermittent fasting and others lead to hunger. Sometimes that phrase hangry can be a real thing. Headaches oftentimes occur, fatigue, dizziness, nausea, difficulty thinking, like you mentioned, that brain fog, irritability, and then other mood disturbances. So,
That's what happens when you have poor glucose regulation and you skip some meals or you don't eat as much as usual. It shouldn't happen just from being on a normal calorie deficit. Like, I maintain intermittent fasting. I do a 4-hour window of eating while maintaining my weight. It's not for the purpose of weight loss. Partly because the glucose regulation issue. My glucose regulation is better this way. I'm not saying everyone should do it. I have a nuanced take on intermittent fasting, unlike these people. It never gives me. It's the opposite. I can go. I can do a 2-day full fast. I don't do it regularly, but I might do it, for example, after drinking alcohol at Christmas. My experience is detoxing the liver with a 2-day fast. I had no dizziness, no headaches, because having a 4-hour eating window all the time means my body, and being a healthy weight, that's important. If you're underweight, that's totally different. You're probably going to get dizzy because you just don't have enough fat on your body and your body doesn't want to use it, and so, but if you have a healthy amount of body fat that your body can use for just 2 days, it's not that long, right? um and then replace, when you then break the fast, replace that fat again, it will just go back on again, and the glycogen stores that you're eating into, etc. Your body is more efficient at doing that when you are not overweight, when you're not overeating. And so the first week I did intermittent fasting, which was also how I lost weight, when I gained it and then lost it a few years ago. That is how I did it with intermittent fasting. You don't have to do it that way. That's what I did, and now I maintain that way. The first week was when I had any of those, not even most of those those things they listed, but I did feel hunger. In fact, that's probably the only thing. I don't remember getting dizzy. I don't remember feeling dizzy during a 4 hour window. And now I can go full 2 days and I can exercise, and I have no problem exercising on a 2 day fast, even at the end of the 2 day fast. And as soon as I start eating again, my hunger signals kick in, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm hungry now, but not in a way that makes me overeat, because at the end of it, I would feel like, oh, I'm really hungry, but I was only eating the right amount of calories I actually needed. In my case, I'm not saying this will work for everyone, but I'm one of those people where that regulation of my glucose and the resetting of my gut microbiome to be healthy and to produce all the right metabolites meant that in my case, I do not overeat once I've been on even a 2 day fast, let alone, so I know other people say they can't do that. Fine. I'm not telling you need to try it. But in my case, I naturally will feel like I've eaten a lot, like, oh, I ate a lot now. But when you look at my weight at the end of it, I'm just back to the same as I was before. Like, I'm the same weight now as before Christmas. And I did that 2 hour, 2 day fast. And I did ate more at Christmas, drank alcohol at Christmas. And because I want to, give my liver the best chance, I've had fatty liver signs before. I'm very wary of fatty liver risk in myself for various reasons. I actually think I'm genetically prone to it. As a cold, logical, practical decision I made beforehand of, I think I'll do a fast, and then I will feel more confident that I can drink the alcohol and not have to. And high fat, all these different foods with alcohol, sugary foods, fatty foods, alcohol, all in the same meal, all in the same drink. High fat, high sugar, like Baileys. If you're British, you know what I mean by Baileys at Christmas. It's a big popular thing. Snowballs at Christmas, high fat, and creamy, sugary, high alcoholic drinks. And that's why I did that. It was for health reasons. So it's not like because they feel guilty, they're trying to justify a BING. A lot of the time, people who have BID, I think they go on a fast knowing that they're going to use that to justify a bin GE later. And I don't do that. I do it knowing that I intend to get a calorie balance at the end of it. I intend to maintain. So when I fast and then I eat, more after the fast, my intention and the result so far has always been that no, my weight doesn't change overall. My weight is back to exactly the way it was before. So obviously I didn't overeat, I didn't undereat. It all worked out. The maths all worked out over the course of that week.
So these diets place so many restrictions on your life and really lead to not living your best life, not feeling your best. And these restrictions can lead some people to develop disorders and then sometimes even a full eating disorder.
The fear mongering. She's talking about any diets now. She says these diets. She means any diet. Trying to not be obese anymore will lead you to develop can lead you to develop a problem, instead of it being the other way around, that having a problem tends to make you want to go on these diets for toxic reasons as opposed to healthy reasons for wanting to go on a diet.
Because some people are genetically predisposed to developing an eating disorder, and
That's true.
a diet is one of those things that really can launch someone not unaware into an eating disorder. So it can be a
bit of a chicken and the egg situation there, don't you think?
slippery slope. And oftentimes when we develop some behaviors, like we develop some rules about eating, they can sometimes take on a life of their own. And then more and more rules are created that we have to follow. And then that can lead to body dissatisfaction, even other behaviors like compulsive exercise. It just becomes this mindset of it's never good enough. I'm not doing enough. And then that leads to low self-esteem. And then somebody can feel like there's something inherently wrong with them, that they're flawed, when really it's the system, the dieting system, if you will, that's wrong. And it's just feeding us, pun intended, a lot of lies.
I want to bring this back to what you said, that there was an actual study in 2022 that showed us that this is not just a conjecture, that we actually know that folks had higher rates of eating. This isn't just like, oh, yeah, 1 in 1,000.
She's referring to the intermittent fasting again now. So talking specifically about an intermittent fasting study, but it actually does apply to all diets, in that, yeah, if you study people who are on any diet, which they say, because remember, I'm on this and not to lose weight, not now, and for a bunch of other reasons that have nothing to do with weight, although are kind of related, like glucose regulation is related to hunger and things, obviously. But the people who are intermittent fasting, yes, when something becomes popular specifically as a strategy to maintain or to keep your weight lower, then obviously you're going to have a higher percentage of those people will be people who have those problems, partly because those problems predispose you to gaining weight in the first place, but also most people who are overweight, it's for other reasons. They have excessive hunger cues, or eating foods that give them excessive hunger cues for other reasons, and it's not about a psychological problem for most people who are overweight or obese. However, the people who are in that category are overrepresented in any diet study that is observational, like taking people who happen to be on a diet and asking them questions, because those are the people who tend to go through many different diets, because they don't just notice, oh, I've gained too much weight, I don't like it, let me lose it, and then like I did when I gained weight and actually was diagnosed as overweight for the first time. Like, I think I had been probably normal weight obese probably before that, but when I was actually diagnosed by a doctor and they said you need to lose weight, I lost the weight first time, and that's kind of typical. If you don't have a problem, especially if you also don't have a medical, or very certainly a very serious thing making you too hungry, then you're probably going to succeed on your first diet, and you won't be in that pool of all those people. And these people who are dietitians, this woman's a dietitian, should know that is a feature of all. I'm sure she does know that, but it's the narrative that they are taught to push is that no one should ever go on one because they are what cause the condition, not that the condition causes you to be endlessly going on a diet, going off it, gaining weight, going on another diet. They want to promote the idea that no one should ever go on one in case you're one of the people who are genetically predisposed to one of these problems. To avoid that, everyone else should just let ourselves get fat and face all the consequences. It's insane logic.
It's actually truth, right? So we know that there's a high risk. And I'm intrigued by the mindset that somebody might have where they feel like, oh, I've failed, versus what you're saying is actually it's the diet that's failed you. And it's the message that society has given you that's failing you. So I'm curious, what is the message that you wish folks could hear?
I wish that folks could hear. I wish it was, just broadcasted across every media outlet there is, that diets don't work. They come with all of these beautiful, attractive promises that not only will you lose weight, but your life's going to be so much better. If you're lonely, this diet's going to help you lose weight and cure your loneliness. If you're sad, this diet's going to help you lose weight and you'll be happy. You'll have the life that you want. But it's that kind of reality that if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So that is true 99% of the time, if not more, when it comes to these fad diets. So
Fad diets, no, they were talking about all diets. Ailey Pike asked the dietitian about, okay, tell me how this intermittent fasting is actually like all other diets, and she was talking about the other diets. So when she says fad diets, you can tell from the context and from everything else she says. If you want to watch this yourself, go ahead, watch the whole thing. Basically, is against any weight loss diet she considers a fad diet. If you're trying to lose weight, she thinks that's silly, and therefore she calls it a fad. So this particular dietitian, who again we're not singling her out, that she is just an example. She is me giving you proof of the kind of thing I'm talking about. It's not, she isn't the problem. So no hate at all, truly. But let's talk about, as she's a good example here, and she is this dietitian that you just saw, and she's the regional nutrition director for Eating Recovery Center. And Eating Recovery Center is the same clinic, the same huge service provider in the United States, which we interviewed Aubrey Gordon. I have made a video giving my opinion on that, but there's also a more of a deep dive by Lisa King, which I will link to, and it's in a playlist I've made on this sort of subject as well, where Lisa King did a series on this subject, and it was this clinic interviewing Aubrey Gordon, who, just in case you're here and you don't know that name, she is a major fat acceptance, health at every size activist. And Ellie Pike is the woman who interviews the dietitian. She was also the same woman interviewing Aubrey Gordon. This is as it says here, accredited through the Joint Commission. I'm not sure what that is. Again, not American. Earn the gold seal of approval. So this means they've met the gold seal of approval and the Joint Commission's rigorous performance standards to obtain this distinctive internationally recognized accreditation. So this, I don't know who the Joint Commission are, but that sounds like it might not even be specific to this field. I'm not sure. That would be worrying. If it's a general medicine thing and even they are buying into this crap, that would be horrifying. But I've no idea. I might look into later what the Joint Commission is and how could they think this is all a good place if they've really looked into it that much. Because obviously not all of it's about promoting obesity, but enough of it is. The fact that any of it is bad enough. But you don't have to look that hard to find it all over this website, all over the materials they put out. You don't have to look that hard to find them promoting obesity as healthy. So it's a bit worrying to me that they got that standard. Now let's look at the other work that Jennifer has done, the dietitian here has done on this for this clinic includes, she wrote the recommended reading list. And I want to show you that now. The recommended E followed by D recovery books, and the list of books is horrifying. It's a list that Samira would give. Samira bangs on about the same books, and if you don't know who Samira is, I don't know how you found my little channel because she's a lot more famous in this sort of anti-acceptance space. But yeah, anti-diet, reclaim your time, money, well-being, and happiness through intuitive eating. Belly of the Beast. The Body is Not an Apology, The Power of Radical Self-Love by Sonia Renee Taylor. I hear fat acceptance people on TikTok promote these all the time. Some of these I haven't heard of, but they're all, a lot of them, if you are watching and not listening, then you can see some of these titles yourself. Intuitive Eating, A Revolutionary Anti-Diet Approach. Life Without Ed. Okay, some of these I don't know if that one might be fine. I don't know. Not all of them are bad. Some of them are about ARFID, a completely different E followed by the letter D. What We Don't Talk About When We Talk About Fat by Aubrey Gordon. And this is a list made by this dietitian and oh, there's a Virgie Tovar book. You Have the Right to Remain Fat. Fantastic. You Just Need to Lose Weight and Other Myths by Aubrey Gordon. It's just it's ridiculous that they're giving the same basic list that Samira might give. Would you take health advice from Samira? Would you pay Samira? Would you? Insurance companies pay for people to go and listen to these people. It's ridiculous. But yeah, it's Jennifer Vitale, this dietitian, and another person, Katie Bendel, who made this list. So presumably Jennifer at least approves of the whole list, or she wouldn't put her name on it, right? Utterly ridiculous. And I want to show you the organization which trains dietitians, which she's a part of. This is how I even found this organization. I was looking into her credentials, where she was taught, and I found that she's a member of this organization, and she is listed as a member, and so she has taken at least some courses from them. As far as I can tell, that's what that means. And she, I think, must be paying for membership, because when I looked into it, it seems like you have to pay to be listed as a member here and take their courses. So this is EDRDPro, which is Ed Sheeran, E followed by the letter D, Registered Dietitians and Professionals is the full name of this organization. And so this is her page where it's funny that she lists weight management as one of her specialisms. But and that confused me because she's against weight management. But what I realized is she talks about obesity, but she also talks about the reductive side. And when she's dealing with the reductive side, she's okay with weight management for them. She's okay with them gaining weight, right? And she was actually for example, I've got an example here. Oh yeah, no, she doesn't actually write this, but it's an example of how they can consider themselves in favor of weight management. And so this was an updated training on a weight-inclusive method to estimating target weight range goals. And then I found another article on this site which was talking about how target weight range, and it was in the AN section, the section for the reductive ANAs, right? That's the only time you hear target weight management talked about, other than this page here, this webinar that they're advertising, which makes me think, so that when they talk about target weight ranges, they are only talking about people who need to gain. They don't consider it, because it wasn't in any of the other sections. It wasn't under the BED. It wasn't under all of the other sections I looked into. It was just under the AN section. They had something about how to determine, and that was also a worrying article, that it talked about taking into account people's family history, and their growth curves before they developed the condition. And it's like, well, some people were underweight before they actually developed the TR. That's actually very common, because a lot of people with AN also have ARFID or started with ARFID and then began to identify as, oh, I'm the skinny one. And then they lean into that when some trauma happens and they decide to be even more thin, right, than they already were. So the idea that they're trying to get people back to whatever their growth curve or whatever their BMI was before they've developed the psychological condition, that's worrying for them. It's obviously worrying when they're diagnosing loads of obese people with atypical AN right now. They're diagnosing them saying you need to eat more, you're not eating enough, which sometimes can be true, right? And certainly from the nutritional point of view, if you just do an extended fast with no nutrition, that's really dangerous. You can get malnutrition even though your body isn't technically starving. It's got plenty of fat on it for energy. It doesn't necessarily have all the nutrients you need. Like maybe I'll do another video on all the reasons I think that they are massively overdiagnosing it. But it's worrying that those people are also going to be told that obviously you don't need to lose weight at all, but yeah, if you have atypical AN, presumably your target weight range is again whatever it was when they decide that your ED started. And then at that point, they'll say, and you might have been you might have been obese as a toddler. Lots of people are obese as toddlers now because their parents are overfeeding them with food that makes you feel too hungry. So you start off obese before you even have the problem, then you're just supposed to go back to obese. So this idea of a weight inclusive method is very concerning. And so Jennifer didn't actually participate in this one. I remembered it wrong. However, it does show you that that's what they mean by weight management. When these anti-diet people say they do weight management, they just mean for the reductive people gaining weight. That's all they are referring to. And so this is the course that they teach on bed. So if you're worried, if you're thinking, oh yeah, but these people probably are only talking about the reductive side, so they're not really going to do much harm to people with bed because no one with bed. No, people with bed do get treatment nowadays from these clinics, including inpatient even. Jamie Weisberg was talking about her inpatient treatment in Canada. And it's all the same. And I've had people from Canada saying that health at every size is in all of the clinics there as well. So, or at least in the two that they went to. Session 5, what's in this session? This is their course on bed that they teach to dietitians, including Jennifer, who came here. I don't know if she took this specific course, but for an example on how they see bed. In this final module, we will discuss strategies to help our clients build lifelong tools that will support them in recovery. We will explore how things like community, advocacy, boundary setting, and resiliency are skills that many folks need to help them manage their recovery in a world that is so focused on weight loss and fat phobic. Again, Samira could have written this. or William Hornby. Name your crazy person that you just see as a random crazy person on TikTok. Are they really that crazy, or did some of them just probably go to a clinic and get taught this, and they are, from their point of view, just repeating an authority figure's words? I don't know how many of those people are actually getting this from these clinics in some cases. I think some of them are. We will also discuss controversial topics and conversations like bed and bariatric surgery, finding medical teams that are aligned with health at every size, and common medications that are prescribed for bed. They are teaching people how to find medical teams, or they're teaching dietitians how to find medical teams for their clients who are aligned with health at every size. That is why, okay, I think this is a good clue as to what's going on when you hear people like the Fab Fatties, that podcast. I didn't call them that. They call themselves that, in case you don't know. I'm not being insulting to people. That's what the podcast is called. They will talk about their medical teams and how all of their doctors, not just one doctor, but they've got a whole team of doctors. One of the women, at least one of them, went to a clinic, and I believe was even inpatient there, not even outpatient. And that's where she was diagnosed with atypical AN in one of these major clinics in the United States. And she's got a big old team. The whole team is telling her the same thing. Is it because when you go to these places, the staff, at least the dietitians, it seems, are taught how to find doctors for that patient, presumably doctors who live near you or who could do telehealth, how to get them a whole team so that the whole team is telling them the same thing, to keep them in their bubble, to keep them in their health at every size bubble, so you can convince your patient that don't listen to the other doctors, they're all wrong. Listen to I'm going to find you doctors who agree with me. That's sinister. And finally, I'd like to show you some of the other segments on this website. They've got a whole segment on diet culture, which, hey, if it was just like anti-fad diet, actual like trashy diets, their opinion on what was a trashy diet, fine. If it was a segment all about why people who are already a healthy weight shouldn't go on a diet, I would expect that from, an E followed by the letter D clinic. right? But no, no. To them, diet culture is anyone ever thinking that weight loss is ever worthwhile or even not harmful, right? Diet culture and its cousins, consumerism and capitalism. What an amazing article name for a clinic that's supposed to just help people. Isn't supposed to get political. That's weird. It's just no one should go on a diet. Doesn't matter what your current weight is. No one should. Only a weight gain diet. You might need to go on a weight gain diet, never a loss one. If Oprah Winfrey can't win when it comes to weight loss, nobody can. That's a CNN article they're linking to. But the worst section is like fat activism. They've got a section called fat activism. And so much of it, I was looking through this before, so much of it is written by names I recognize from long ago when I first discovered fat acceptance as a concept years ago. I wasn't super into it, but I stumbled across it through the, like, I don't remember how I first found it, but when I first came across it, it was on the blogosphere before TikTok, before Instagram. It was on the blogosphere, and you would get some of the names that I'm seeing come up here. It's like a real blast from the past because I then lost interest in that subject for a while before I got back into it recently after having gained like weight myself. And yeah, health at every size, weight inclusive care. Weight inclusive care comes up a lot on this website, and it's like, okay, well, what that could just mean, hey, we recognize whatever weight you are, you can have one, which is true, but that's not what they mean. It's clear whenever this comes up, it is them saying that you shouldn't try to tell an obese patient to lose weight. Basically, is what they mean by weight inclusive. They mean not telling people that you can ever be too big for your health. You can read some of these yourself if you're watching. Obesity is not a E led by the letter D by Reagan Chastain. Wow, she is old school. If you don't know who Reagan Chastain is and you're interested in this fat acceptance subject and the history of fat acceptance, look into Reagan because she's apparently still alive last time I checked, but you never hear her anymore. She went totally silent, but she is all over this section. She has so many articles that they have linked to. It's just Reagan Chastain, loads of it throughout this website. Celebrating everybody through children's books. And yeah, a lot of these are written by Reagan Chastain. That's like amazing to me that they went that far back in history. Or I don't know how old this organization is. How old has this website always linked to her from, like the probably 2010? I'm thinking is when Reagan Chastain was out there writing those articles. Intuitive eating and non-diet approaches. Again, if it was just talking about AN, you could look past that and think, oh, it's probably nothing bad. But no, when you actually read these articles, I have read these articles. It's not the take your best case scenario, given the benefit of the doubt interpretation, and scrap that. It's not. It's always your worst interpretation. Almost always. Almost every article I looked into when I was curious turned out to be no. This is toxic. This is fat acceptance nonsense. But yeah, there's a whole section here, health at every size and weight inclusive care. They're not hiding it. They're not ashamed of it. They don't seem to anticipate that they might get investigated by some higher medical body and shut down for this. They are clearly very confident that they can just have this out there and there will be no consequences, which is interesting. I don't know if they're right. I don't know if there is anything we can do, anyone we can report them to, where this will be changed and they'll be forced to change this by other aspects of the medical community who will look at this and be like, what are you doing? You're sending patients to me sicker if this is what you're teaching them. You're causing the problems that I'm having to treat over in my department, over in the I don't know, gallstone department or whatever it is. So you're giving people gallstones and things by telling them that being fat doesn't cause that and all this stuff, like, and you're giving people heart attacks and stuff, and I'm having to treat them. How do we get that to happen? How do we get other doctors who are not in this space to recognize what's going on and do something about it? Yeah, this section on AN is the only one where they talk about. They have an article on target weights, which actually that article wasn't terrible. I just found it interesting that we think you should take into account how big someone's family is. Like if someone's family is all obese, then maybe they're supposed to be obese. If someone's family are all underweight, then maybe that's not really underweight for them. Maybe that's their genetic healthy weight, and it's really weird. And I do think that it's difficult though, because I do believe that some people need to be a higher or lower BMI than others based on their skeletal structure. I am in that. I've got experience of that with my bird bone skeleton. I need to be lower weight than others to be healthy. Doesn't not drastically lower in my case, but I do believe that's the thing. Some people need to be heavier or lighter based on how heavy their bones are. But that's not what they were talking about. They were literally talking about how fat is your mum. If your mum's fat, maybe you're supposed to be fat. Crazy. Weight loss. They've got a section on weight loss, and do you think it's ever? There's one article on it. associations between adverse childhood experiences and its history of weight cycling. So nothing about how do we help our patients healthily lose weight. I've looked through this website and I cannot find anything that is telling dietitians how to help a patient safely and effectively lose weight if they have one of these problems. Nothing about that. There is nothing telling you, oh, here's the best way to, because they just are against it. It's all about just being against it. And if you go to the main page of this organization, they are open. They are open about the fact that they are weight inclusive. They use that term a lot. Yeah. This is not a tiny organization, and and it seems that you can get you can learn from them no matter where you are in the world. So they are spreading this around the world as well. It seems that they're based in the United States, but any dietitian from any country can learn from them. It's really, really scary, guys. Like, tell me, what do you think we should do about this? Who do we report them to? If you work in the medical field in the United States, or another country's system of how it works, who should you report this to? You can't just report the individual dietitian, because she's just going to say, hey, this is what is standard practice. This is what we're taught. So it's not the level of them. They're not the level we need to be focusing on. We need to focus on the levels above them, which are teaching them that this is how they should be practicing. I think it doesn't actually help people with the other E followed by the letter D's that much either. I do think it can be harmful to their recovery when this medical misinformation is being stated to them by the clinics, and then by their actual regular doctors. They're very likely to be being told that no, all that stuff's not true. And how confusing must that be? And I've had comments from people who've had the reductive side of the Ed Sheeran world, a barrier to recovery for people with that side when they are hearing crazy things being spouted by the people they're supposed to trust, and the fear of, well, are these people going to just let me keep gaining weight to no end because they don't believe there's any harm in that, and they're telling me it doesn't matter if I get fat, literally telling me it doesn't matter. And but also a lot of people, I think, don't care that much about this issue. Maybe this is my theory, because a lot of people probably assume that these clinics are only helping people with the other conditions anyway, and traditionally, historically, that was the case. It was very rare for someone with bed to enter a clinic, certainly as an inpatient, even as an outpatient. However, that is changing. It's been changed for a while. A lot of people with bed seek treatment now because they've at least heard of it now, and they look up treatment. And you see, sometimes it might be a single person who's not a big clinic, but if they do seek out the most established, the most famous, the most renowned, the highest reputation clinics in their country, it's gonna be the same. It doesn't matter if, in fact, they might be more likely to get real treatment from a generic therapist who at least won't be telling them medical misinformation more often than if they go to a specialist. The specialists are the worst because that's what they're being taught currently. I'm sure it doesn't help that a lot of these people have the E followed by the letter D themselves, but that's not the main problem here. It wouldn't still be possible unless it was approved at the top, would it? If the people are ultimately in charge didn't approve of these clinics, of this treatment model, that the people who are like running the clinics at the highest level, the executives, if they didn't approve, this would not be rampant. This wouldn't be the norm. So clearly, it is a systemic issue. This is actually a systemic issue of health at every size being promoted at these clinics.